we actually hosted 2 Jane's Walks. We also created a plaque dedicated to DIL building number 208, which is one of the last surviving production buildings. We're also in the process of also working on another plaque for the DIL supervisor's apartment, and we are also creating a revised DIL Heritage Minute, as well as a virtual story map, which will provide a virtual tour of the former complex. In addition, this last year, we also unveiled a brand new tour on the Society of Friends Cemetery, and this was a really, really amazing event. We actually had a total of 34 participants over the 2 tours, and the cemetery itself is actually a former Quaker cemetery, and so there's some really, really interesting individuals interred there, and thank you also to Councillor Bauer for attending that as well. Another major project that we worked on as well this year is really dedicated to helping to restore and conserve our various different cemeteries in the town, and also recognizing our various War of 1812 veterans within the community. And one of the individuals who we really focused on quite a bit this year was the late Jabez Lynn. Jabez Lynn was a member of the local militia who fought during the War of 1812, which was actually a little bit of a rarity because Quakers didn't typically fight essentially in these types of conflicts, and so typically they normally helped in auxiliary roles. So for that, of course, we created a plaque for him, and we are also currently partnering with students and faculty from the University of Toronto, where they've actually been conducting some non-invasive testing, such as conducting a non-penetrating radar scan of the local, let me just get this here, there we are, of the local cemetery. And oftentimes in Quaker burial practices, it was quite common to sometimes bury their loved ones in unmarked plots, and so this is the result of the ground-penetrating radar scan that was conducted by students from the University of Toronto, and it's really quite amazing to discover how many were actually located and unmarked in the Hicksite burial grounds. Now, here you can actually see we've actually taken a little screenshot of some of the scans. So if you take a look at the photo at the bottom of your screen, you'll notice those little anomalies, those sort of lines there, the sort of large lumps in the anomaly. So that is actually indicating that there is multiple burials in those particular plots, and it's really quite fascinating to see how deep some of these burials were and how often they would often reuse burial chambers as well. In addition, I should also mention we also attended 2 heritage conferences, and there we also discussed quite a bit about the Ontario Heritage Act, along with a number of different policy changes related to that. So I'd like to thank each and every one of you so much for taking the time to listen to our update, and I'd like to open up the floor to anyone that may have any questions.
Perfectly timed, sir. We have a list of questions. We'll start with Councillor Tyler Morin.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mitchell. I want everybody to know that you do great work with the Heritage Committee, and you're our Wikipedia. I think Steve might agree with that. We don't need Wikipedia if you're in the room. So, and that's a compliment. Can you speak a little bit about the initiative that you did? I think we worked together a little bit on for getting some pieces, some art pieces, pictures, images over at Go Transit, and where that's standing, because I think that's a very strong place because there's so many people that would see it. So can you explain a little bit about that? Thank you.
Thanks so much, Councillor Tyler Morin. Through the chair, yes, we are also just embarking on a very, very exciting project. We're currently in discussions with Metrolinx to discuss the possibility about creating a panel display in the Ajax Go Station, which will discuss the history of Ajax. It's still in the very, very early stages of development, but that's one of several displays that we're hoping to implement over the coming council or following years of the council term. So thank you so much. So essentially it'll cover the main history of Ajax as well as the history of transportation in the town as well.
That's great. I know Mr. Sawchuk probably has more to add to that. I'll leave it at that at this time, but again, thank you so much for everything you do over there at the Heritage. Thank you, Chair. Thanks
so much, Councillor Tyler Morin.
Thank you, Councillor Tyler Morin. Next, we have Regional Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Chair. I follow you on LinkedIn, so I know that you do a lot of work with different historical organizations. So thank you for bringing your knowledge to this committee. I have a question. I've had a few residents ask me about the cemetery it's off of Elizabeth. it's a historical cemetery. Sometimes the stones get tipped over, but I don't believe that that is town property. Do you know anything about that?
Sorry, Mitchell, I cut you off there. Would you mind hitting the button in front of you one more time? Thank you. And please go ahead.
My apologies there. Thank you, Councillor Crawford. Through the chair, I'd actually like to turn this question actually to Mr. Sawchuk, who might be able to provide a little bit more input on that particular property.
Thank you. So through the chair, excuse me, to Regional Councillor Crawford.
We're having trouble. People are just shutting themselves off.
The Elizabeth Street Cemetery is not owned by the town, but it is maintained by the town in terms of landscaping and that sort of thing. One of the major issues we were facing over the last several years, as you said, were headstones that were starting to tilt. In some cases, headstones had turned right over. We were able to work with the legal owners of the cemetery, which is the Pickering Village United Church. A couple of years ago, we delivered a town grant to help with the restoration of that property. So the few headstones that were in a pretty bad state of repair, we were able to get those straightened up, new foundations poured and that sort of thing. So all of the major issues that have been experienced there have been remedied for the time being. You're welcome.
And through the chair, thank you so much to Mr. Sawchuk, to Councillor Crawford as well. Just to add to that as well, one of the major areas of the committee that we're hoping to work on over the following council term, essentially, is to work on doing a full restoration of several of our heritage cemeteries within the town. Unfortunately, a number of our heritage cemeteries are in a little bit of a poor state. There are a number of headstones that are either missing or that have been knocked over, as Mr. Sawchuk had mentioned. In addition, we are also looking at getting another War of 1812 commemorative plaque for another veteran located as well in the Society of Friends Cemetery. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we have Regional Councillor Dyes.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. So I'm really curious about the Hicksite Cemetery, which is, many people don't know about it at all because it's well hidden. With the work that they've done with this radar scan, did it increase sort of what we thought would have been the original boundaries of the cemetery? Has it gotten bigger than we thought?
Thank you so much, Councillor Dyes, through the chair. Absolutely. So by conducting the ground-penetrating radar scan, we actually uncovered a number of very, very unique phenomenons. We knew that there was likely going to be unmarked burial plots within that particular cemetery. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with this particular cemetery, I'll mention the cemetery itself. It's actually the oldest cemetery in the town, and it was the Hicksites were actually an offshoot of the Society of Friends. And the property itself was actually located on the Brown family's property, so they actually donated the property to be used for the purposes of a cemetery. And so what we did discover is that a few of the plots, and I'll just pull up the photo of the ground penetrating radar there again, so you can see a few of the plots actually do extend a little bit into the woodlot, just to the right-hand side of the property, and that's over by Mr. Peikoff's property. And so it does sort of extend a little bit further out from the main clearing itself, as well as a little bit to the north and from the south as well. Now, there was another archaeological assessment done for the new development that's going to be taking place directly south of the property. And during that particular archaeological assessment, they did uncover the remains of several dogs from the former kennel that were found on that particular piece of property. However, there weren't any human burial plots found when they were conducting the archaeological assessment for that particular part of the property.
Are we on or off? Okay. Further to that then, so those ones that we have discovered that we didn't know were there and are kind of outside that boundary, is there a process that you have to go through to get them protected, or are they automatically incorporated because they're on somebody else's property now?
Thank you so much. Through the chair, Councillor Dyes, thank you again so much for your question. So in regards to the actual property itself, so it is still on the Hicksite Cemetery property, which is a property that is now owned and managed by the town. So in this particular case, we don't need to worry too much about getting specific permission. One thing that we've been discussing quite a bit at the committee, as I mentioned, is potentially restoring some of the stones that are there. In addition, just through years and years and years of the property essentially going through a series of different owners, some of the stones themselves have also been moved from their original location. So by having this map of the ground penetrating radar scan, this could potentially also assist us in potentially relocating some of the misplaced stones back to at least within close proximity of their original locations.
Great. Thank you very much, and I appreciate the work you're doing to help new residents and old actually learn the history of Ajax. We have some interesting backgrounds there that I think a lot are not aware of, so thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Lee. Good afternoon, Mr. Daniels. Excellent presentation. Thank you so much. A huge shout out to the Heritage Advisory Committee for the work that you do and the history that you share and teach us about. And that cemetery, the Friends Cemetery tour, was fantastic. So my question is about the virtual story map that you mentioned in the presentation. So would something like the Society of Friends Cemetery tour be something that would be a virtual tour, or what kind of stuff is being looked at for that?
So thank you so much, and through the chair, thank you so much, Councillor Bauer. So in regards to the story map tour that exists right now, it's a tour right now. It's a virtual tour of Defence Industries Limited, and it also is meant to complement a number of the other archival documents and photographs that we have from the Ajax archives in the collection. And so as you go through, I believe Sarah Moore. Sorry, I'll just move this question over to you there for a moment. For the story map, is it? I believe it's available through the heritage page on the town's website as well, right?
Through the chair, I actually am going to defer that question to Mr. Sawchuk, if you don't mind.
Thank you. So the tour that's available right now is available through the town's general website. So it's at ajax.ca/DIL tour. Okay. Now, getting back to your original question about the cemetery tours and possibilities to utilize similar type platforms for those, I think that's something that the committee would be very happy to work on in the future. We would need the support of the IT department, that sort of thing. I think it goes a little beyond our capacity. But if there is a demand for having these tours available online, we've done all the research, we have all the materials. I think that's something we'd be happy to provide.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
I misunderstood. I thought the story map was something up and coming, but it already exists, which I think is great. And all of these tours are documented, and we have, like, are they formally documented so that it can be sort of a package taken maybe to share with schools or with other members maybe of the committee, like that kind of stuff? It's well kept?
Yes, so we, in any case where we lead a tour, we're going to have all of the documentation written down. In some cases, like as was the case for the cemetery tour, the plan was to deliver it orally, so we don't have any we don't have anything formal in terms of handouts. I think we did produce a small handout for that event, but it was relatively limited in terms of the information that was on there. If there is a desire for us to go out and meet with schools or to provide information that could be passed along to schools, we'd be happy to package any information that way and provide it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thanks again. Those were my questions, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer, and thank you very much for the delegation. We're just doing a bit of seat shuffling right now. We're having an issue with Councillor Tyler Morin's camera. He'll just be on the end there, so it's not an empty seat. Thank you. So moving on within the agenda, next we have Douglas Glass, Ajax resident, regarding the 2023 financial statements for Ajax. Mr. Glass?
Just which button? Okay. Perfect. Test? Oh, great. All right, I'm going to jump right in. Thank you very much for having me today, and thank you to council and all senior staff and your collective staff. You've been very helpful to me, and I appreciate all the work you do. I'm just here to speak to the 2023 financial statements for Ajax. As a resident who likes to be active, I like to look at these documents, and if I see any kind of things that are great or opportunities for improvement, I like to share them with not only council, but our community at large. A lot of my data is going to compare from 2018 to 2023, so a 5-year period. And just for the record, I am doing the same presentation on Durham Region's financial statements in December. And at the end of my presentation, I hope I could have 3 questions answered. So jumping right in, the balance sheet is very strong. And I think the town deserves a lot of congratulations for that. Assets over those 5 years grew 21% and are closing in on $1 billion. Debt relatively at $129 million is not significant, but if you look at the debt growth over those 5 years, it's grown 86%. So while the debt is strong, is there any way this presentation is cutting off at the bottom? I don't think it's like activated, but sorry. Do you see how it's cutting off? There, thank you. Sorry about that. Perfect. So while, again, the statements are very strong, the debt to equity margin has weakened by 62%. Jeez, what's going on here now? I can't. It's not allowing me to just hit forward. Usually I just click that one button and...
No worries. There you go. Just those 2.
Which 2?
The arrows left and right.
This one here.
Arrows left and right.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. So moving along to the income statement, as we can see here, revenues have grown 25% over those 5 years, but expenses are growing at a faster rate than revenues at 36%, which has lowered our surplus profit and profit margins. So we're seeing increasing expenses relative to revenues. And then when you look at revenues, right, revenues have grown, total revenues have grown 25%, but tax revenues have grown 34%. In 2018, 53% of the revenues in the town were tax revenues. Now it's close to 58%. So we're more dependent upon tax revenues, and spending is up. Obviously, expense growth and population growth are not linear. However, some measure of consistency must exist between the two. Ajax's population has grown by 9.7%, but our expenses have grown by 36%, almost a 4-fold difference. How is that possible? Staffing is a big indicator of that. We've seen staffing grow by almost 39%. Salaries are up 32%. Contracted services, that's outsourced work, is up almost 39%. So in spite of adding, almost 40% more staff, we're increasing the amount of outsourced labor as well, and that's in spite of only a population growth of 10%. If we look at our comparisons against other municipalities in Durham, while Ajax ranks 6th in population growth over this time at 4.1%, we ranked first in growth of staff by a significant margin at 31%. And these numbers are from 2018 to 2022 because many of the other municipalities haven't reported their 2023 numbers of yet. But surely, I appreciate the town's been understaffed in those years prior to 2018, but surely I think now we've reached a point where new staff hires could be slowed to more the regional average. So in summary, I acknowledge and respect that the town of Ajax is sound financials. We're in very good shape, but surely you can agree that expenses are growing faster than revenues. We're increasingly more dependent on residential property taxes for revenue. Debt is growing at a faster rate than assets, although assets are still very strong. Many margins have weakened. The staffing levels and outsource work must be slowed down, and property taxes that residents are paying are unsustainable. So with that, my question is, given these concerns, number one, how are we going to slow down the growth in spending and use of debt so that those levels get more in line with revenues and so on? And two, when are we going to return Ajax portion of the annual tax increase to 3.5 like it was from 2018 to 2022? And three, what year do you believe we will be able to do both of these things? Over the past 2 years, an average tax increase has been passed by Ajax at 8.47%. I think these three questions are very fair ones that residents would like answers to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glass, for your presentation. Do any members of council have any questions? Mayor Collier, I believe you wish to speak. Sorry, could you request it again? All right, thank you.
I'll give it my best shot to answer the three questions that Mr. Glass has posed, and then I'll ask the clerk. The first, slow down the growth in spending and use of debt. I believe everybody can just look at their normal household budgets and see how much costs have gone up in the last 5 years. I mean, Mr. Glass, you have to admit, what you pay for fuel for your car and for insurance and those other things have gone up consistently year over year. We experience the same costs. The simple answer to your question is, it's just costs have gone up. Since COVID happened, the cost of things, and we've had these conversations, have more than doubled. And that's just a fact. We budget and we put in our capital budget that a road, and you've heard me use this analogy before, could be 1 million and now it's 2. That's just reality. So if that changes, if the interest rate's coming down and people are building us, maybe we'll get better pricing. That would be great. But right now, unfortunately, those are the costs. To the Ajax portion of the tax increase, I believe we were under 3.5. I'll ask the clerk to clarify. I know this year we're under 3.5.
No, this is you can see the graph at the bottom there. That's the portion of the increase that the town passes, not the charge back to the resident.
So sorry, just a very quick second. Sorry, Mr. Glass. The way delegations work, you asked us some questions we have to be able to answer. Okay. There actually is no back and forth. It's just a bylaw. Thank you. Mayor Collier?
Thank you. Okay, well, I mean, I'm talking about the actual impact to the residents. So yes, you're correct. And I don't know what this year's is off the top of my head. It will be on December the 13th. We'll be having that meeting here, and I hope you will attend and ask questions. But the blended rate is the actual impact to the taxpayer. And so it's under 3.5. It's like 3.5, like to say 6% of 34% is a more difficult math to do. Our actual impact to the taxpayers is under the 3.5. And what year we'll be able to achieve both of these? I don't know that we will, to be honest. I think we are keeping the tax rates as low as we can while keeping the lights on. This budget this year is not quite a status quo. There are some increases in different services. We are expanding some of our things like pickleball and some other things. But, oh, sorry, did I cut out there?
You're good. Please continue.
Okay. But, I mean, we do keep them as low as possible while doing what we have to do and providing the services that we have to provide as a town. And I do appreciate you investing your time and effort into this and asking the questions. And you probably see me post online a few times asking people to do that. Like, we want people to be engaged. And then I think by being engaged, you'll have a better understanding of exactly why the numbers are the numbers. Anyway, that's my best at answering your 3 questions. Thank you for your delegation.
Would any of the members of council like to ask Mr. Glass any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Glass, thank you very much for your delegation. I assume we'll see you on the 13th of December. Yes. We'll see you then. Thank you, sir. Next, we have 5.5, delegation, Build's 2024 GTA Municipal Benchmarking Study. We have Alex Bisetti, excuse me, I mispronounced that, consultant for Build. And I jumped. I apologize. I cannot count. So let's restart. You know what? We'll just jump to 5.5 first. You're here anyways. Is that okay? Yeah. So sorry about that. Thank you.
So good afternoon, Your Worship, members. We just want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak today. On the agenda, it is Alex Beheshti speaking to you today on Build's 2024 Municipal Benchmarking Study. Prior to handing the mic over to him, I just wanted to introduce myself as the representative of Build staff here today. I'm Victoria Mortaliti. I'm the Senior Manager of Policy and Advocacy for Build. Just briefly, Build is a membership-based association comprised of members of the development industry. So this includes developers, builders, various land consultants and renovators. We are here to speak with you today to provide an overview of our recently released 2024 municipal benchmarking study as requested by council. So to lead today's presentation, I've brought Build's consultant, Alex Beheshti. With that, I'll hand it over to him. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Good afternoon, council and mayor. My name is Alex Beheshti. I'm a registered professional planner and I am a consultant. I was retained by Build along with 2 other colleagues of mine to produce the 2024 Greater Toronto Area Municipal Benchmarking Study, also known as the Build Benchmarking Study. This is a report that is in its 3rd iteration, and we do 2 reports every 2 years. One is the GTA version, and one is the national version, which compares various municipalities across Canada and the Greater Toronto Area in terms of application timelines and other planning metrics. That report is expected to be released in January, and we'll have further details for the Canada-wide study. So given the time constraints, I will not be able to take you through the entire study end to end. I believe a copy has been requested, or Victoria can send you a copy at your request. You can also find the study at buildgta.ca. It's right there, and you can also find the older studies from 2020 and 2022. Generally, the study has 5 components to it: demographics, application statistics, fees and charges, planning features, and municipal achievements. I'm just going to quickly go over the first 3, and then we're going to go into depth on the last 2. So in terms of demographics, I think, you know, the narrative is quite set. Our population has increased far in excess to what we have been able to build in terms of housing. In terms of application statistics, in the last 2 years, since 2023 rolling into 2024, applications across the Greater Toronto Area have absolutely collapsed, and I don't say that word lightly. It is drastic in the data what we have seen. In terms of fees and charges, this is always a contentious conversation, but we have seen many municipalities increase their development charges and their planning fees over and above 40%. So it's been a tough environment to build over the last 2 years. In terms of planning features, sorry, excuse me. Planning features looks at 13 different features that we've categorized within 3 different themes: application preparation, application submission, and application tracking. What the report does is it both provides, an overview on the demographic, construction, and planning statistics, as well as it provides feedback on planning operations. What we wanted to do here is to look at how are our municipalities doing in terms of making it possible to easily submit an application, to understand what that application requires, and then after the application has been submitted, to see where that application is at. So here we see the scores that municipalities in the Greater Toronto Area have achieved within each category. Your peers, Clarington, Whitby, and Oshawa within Durham tend to laggard the rest of the region. There are, within the report, there will be details on where and how and why. But what we do see is technological adoption tends to be a challenge for municipalities within Durham region. Technology is not the sole solution to everything, I want to emphasize, and we also do provide a lot of feedback that we got from my planning colleagues on the public sector side on best practices and tips and tricks that I hope your staff find some use in. So in terms of municipal achievements, I think this is probably more relevant to council. We got 114 achievements. We did not list them all. It would have been too extensive to do that. We did categorize them within 5 groupings, and it kind of gives you a trend of what everybody's been up to over the last 2 years. To the extent possible, we preserved the language that we were given. So when you are reading this section, you are reading planning staff in other municipalities and what they have said they have done. A big trend that we saw beyond, like, I think the news-making stuff around zoning has been the delegation of approval authority. So there's various kinds of approvals that council or a committee such as the COA, the Committee of Adjustment, may make. The province has, over the past few years, provided the option to delegate certain approvals, and we have seen a lot of municipalities provide that to their staff. So, for example, staff in a number of municipalities have been given the ability to deal with holdings on zoning bylaws. In terms of process improvements, this is another achievement category I'm going to speak to. 2 examples that I think are relevant is one with the City of Toronto. The city staff there were able to cut between 100 to 120 days from the application process simply by not providing council a preliminary report. So this is just a report that describes the development features of it all. And what they've done instead is they've helped councillors access what they call AIC, the Application Information Center, so that they can rapidly get information that they seek rather than waiting for that report to be produced, which can take 100 to 120 days because staff have a lot on their plate. Another example of timeline improvements is the City of Brampton. They previously, regardless if a recommendation report was ready or not, there would be a 30-day hold on that application before it could be provided to council after the public meeting. They've changed their official plan policies to remove that, so that applications can, once they are ready to be seen by council, they can immediately go to council instead of waiting that 30 days where you may be bumped a bunch of different council sessions. So my concluding remarks is, we did a lot of conversations, a ton of conversations. Some of it's in the report, some of it, if you ask me questions, I can provide more details on. But the thing that I took away was, for municipalities to be successful to develop a efficient process, it is interlinked between leadership, operations, and policy. You kind of need all 3 working together in concert with each other. And the thing that binds all of this stuff together is communication. And communication does not mean more stakeholder meetings, but it means at every possible opportunity, the applicant is able to communicate with the city is able to communicate with the applicant, and other stakeholders are able to find the information that they need, and that all of this can be done effectively and efficiently. And so I hope you guys have questions for me because there's lots of details that I'm not able to get into with such a brief presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. We do have some questions. We'll start with Regional Council Crawford. Sure.
Thank you, Chair, through you. Thank you for coming today. I really appreciate it. So the town of Ajax is happy to be not on the list. That's a list you don't want to be on. And I know that we have, over the course of the last 2 terms, really been working on speeding up the planning process for sure. But the first, and we want to build houses. We know everything in our municipality has to go up, so it's a little bit harder. Buy-in is a little bit more difficult, but we have 20,000 units waiting and basically approved, not in our hands anymore. And we're waiting for shovels to go in the ground with, I think, 69, correct me if I'm wrong, Director Romanowski, 69 units currently being built. So it's a little bit frustrating because, I don't mean any disrespect, I really don't. But when I hear radio ads blaming municipalities for a 2-year delay, that's not the case. And so, putting that out in the air makes it a bit hard for us because we're doing everything that we're trying to do to build a house, and it's just not happening for a number of reasons. And I'm not blaming the developers either. The cost of everything is, escalated over time. So I don't know what should we be doing if we're, to get these things started. It's really out of our control, in my thinking.
Thank you, Councillor, for that question. What can we be doing? Lots of things. So, I always like to give the analogy of what moves a ship forward, the sails or the wind, and the answer is both, right? But what can we control? We can't control the wind, right? So we can control the sail. So, I'd like to give you a story of my time in municipal government. So, when I was working in development application intake for a larger municipality, I'm not going to name who it was, we would get these checks in, and these checks would have 123 Ontario ink on it, and we wouldn't be able to match it in our system. You think you're talking to McDonald's Canada, but McDonald's Canada has a subsidiary and they use a numbered company, right? It's a very basic practice. And I asked my manager and I said, what do we do about this check? And she said, do you see that desk there? And I said, yeah. And she's like, you take the key above the desk, you open the drawer, you put the check in it, and you close the drawer and you forget about it. And I was like, that can't possibly be what we do. And she's like, that's what we do. And so, there's a lot of things you can take away from that. Is it the municipality's fault, or is it, I think in that case, it comes back to when I talked about communication. We need to communicate with builders, hey, on your checks, put the address and the application number on the check. We don't know who you are. We have hundreds of applications to deal with. Is it, their fault for thinking that everybody knows who they are and they're so special? Or is it the municipality's fault for failing to communicate or having a poor practice in dealing with that check? The answer, it doesn't matter. The answer is we got to fix this, right? And so I do appreciate your frustration. I mean, you talk about, having 20,000 homes ready to go, right? If those homes were approved 1 year earlier, many of them would be under construction today. So that does show that, timely delays do cause problems. Now, we can't change the past, and so we have to pull up our sleeves and figure out how can we fix the future. And so this report provides a ton of tidbits to staff on what they can do to avoid all those little problems that escalate into a big problem, right? Simply telling somebody, put your application number and put your address on a check can literally prevent a legal issue later on down the road where now there's a dispute of when was the complete application, right? Because there's all these knock-on effects on that. And so these little things that we can do to help each other in communication really prevents a lot of problems and really does help deal with those delays and can help us get more housing built when the winds are blowing so that our sail can catch that wind. I hope that answers that question.
Thank you. We have Councillor Bauer next.
Thank you, Chair Lee. Good afternoon. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Beheshti. My question was, I believe on one of your slides, the slides listing municipal themes and features, the rankings, you made a comment about technology, and I'm sorry I missed it. Could you please repeat that?
So technology can certainly help us, but it's not the end-all be-all of fixing all problems, right? It is a culture of how we approach issues. So what I mean by that, let's go back to that example I gave about the checks, right? So now you can implement a e-payment system, and then you don't have to worry about telling somebody this or that or the other. They just fill it out and they send the bank transfer and problem solved. Not all municipalities have the ability to finance that technology, and so you have to figure out what are alternatives to it. So, and the other thing too is, one thing we talked about that I heard back from staff was, we have developed these development tracking systems, right? But trying to get their staff to understand you have all of this power of data in front of you. Use it, right? So, the director of Markham, he likes to tell his staff, he watches everything. He's able to watch everything. And he tells his staff, pick up the phone, use this data. Look at when an application is stalled, you haven't heard back in 3 months, you have the counter, you have the date on everything. Call them up, see what's up. See is there some kind of miscommunication that has happened? So technology can help us if used correctly, but in and itself is not the fix for everything.
Right, okay. Okay, thank you for clarifying. That was my only question, Chair.
Thank you. Next, we have Regional Councillor Dyes.
Oh, thank you. Just one question. Do you represent the not-for-profit housing developers?
So I don't represent anyone because I don't work for Build, but I believe Build does represent the not-for-profit sector.
Because it's my understanding after going to 2 conferences on homelessness and for not-for-profit that they're building. So why is the for-profit industry not?
So quite a few of my friends in the not-for-profit sector would tell you they're having real struggles with it.
We all are.
Yeah, everybody's having struggles with it. There are a number of not-for-profit projects in Toronto. Like Toronto's really struggling with this issue right now, where they have approved sites for not-for-profit developers, and they're just not getting off the ground. So yes, there are not-for-profits building, but there are certainly ones that are struggling as well. And I just want to emphasize, like, a lot of these issues that I'm talking about on the operational side, they get affected by it too. And they have less resources to deal with this stuff. I think sometimes when we look at the application process, we need to understand, like, what are the burdens we're placing on the people that are going to struggle the most with it. And if you permit me, I would like to give a concrete example. So in my practice, I often get asked by people to produce a housing impact assessment report or one of its derivations of that name. And so what this report is I basically read back to the city staff, the city's own housing policies. I tell them how much housing has the city been building, how much do they need, what is the price of this housing, and how does that home kind of fit in with that city. You can argue about the necessity of that or not, especially on the for-profit side. But why does a nonprofit have to develop this report? I can't tell you the number of times I get this call from a nonprofit and they tell me, like, so we need to produce this report for the city. I go, why? Why do you need this? Like, it should be completely waived for you guys. I mean, the fact is you're going to build affordable housing. It can only be a net positive. Why do you need a multi-$1,000 report to tell you that? So I would tell you that, when I talk to my friends in the not-for-profit sector, they really struggle with communicating with municipalities because often you are their funding partner as well, and they really struggle with providing critical feedback.
Well, it's a complication of being a not-for-profit and funded by different levels of government. But I have to say they are building. And they're starting to build, and we're not seeing anything from the private sector. So I think they need a little bit more a helping hand, and because they know what they need, they know how to build it, and they provide the services required. And from what I've heard and seen, that's what we're missing right now is affordable housing for low-income people.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair, I had a conversation recently with someone in the development field, and I'd like to repeat a statement to you and tell me if you think this is accurate. I was told that the reason that these large developments are not taking off right now is due to the fact that the numbers don't make sense. The larger the development in this economy, the harder it's going to be to bring this to fruition, and it's just not possible in this economy. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would say that getting capital necessary to finance a project is very difficult, and the more capital you require, the more difficulty you're going to have. What I think this emphasizes is that we need to create a range of opportunities. The word opportunity is not a guarantee that something happens, but it is a chance that something can happen. I think we have to give housing more chances to be built at various prices as well as various capitalization requirements. So, you know, the folks with the larger developments, they are having a hard time because the banks are also very tight-fisted, right? They go that the economy is not in a great state. We don't want to be holding the bag, and so, you know, your financing requirements are very, very tough.
Thank you. I'm actually glad you were here today, because when I heard that statement, I was thinking about it and thinking, well, we've just approved a lot of large high-rises, and what does that mean then? Like, what does that look like if this is not going to come to fruition? And why aren't we seeing shovels in the ground? So I'm being told that developers who have been around for a long time, who have a bigger namesake, you're seeing that they're building more moderate developments, and those are coming to fruition a lot quicker. And that would be an accurate statement, correct?
So the market is working to whatever kind of pencils, right? And so again, it is about providing a range of opportunities. When the economy picks up, Ajax won't be producing 60 homes at a time. It'll be producing hundreds of homes when those come online, right? Right now, that opportunity is not one that can be turned into reality. And so what can be turned into reality, right? And so we have to look at that and try to provide those opportunities as quickly as possible. I think we tend to have an issue in Canada where we chase what was possible yesterday, right? So we have to get, it's not that those types of developments, you shouldn't approve those anymore. You absolutely should, because when the economy gets going, we're going to need those homes, right? We are desperately going to need those homes, or we're going to see prices kick right back up.
Are you seeing anything in other municipalities where developers are coming before council and asking for a change in zoning, and there's some type of clause or something put in that zoning where we're looking at, okay, we'll give you this zoning, but we need to see shovels in the ground in 2 years. If not, we're going to pull it. Are you seeing that in the industry?
So sunset clauses have, on the zoning side, I would discourage people putting sunset clauses on zoning. There can be a lot of repercussions in terms of financing, in terms of property taxation, et cetera, et cetera. The province has given you the ability on the servicing side to put sunset clauses so that if somebody is not ready to go, then the servicing can be reallocated to somewhere else. Now, that may or may not be applicable to Ajax, but the province has provided that ability to councils to exercise should you wish.
Should you wish to implement a sunset clause at the
On servicing allocations, that is what's legal.
Interesting. And I guess my last question would be, do you see a time when this is going to turn around in the near future?
I am 35 years old. I hope it's sooner rather than later is my answer. I need to actually buy a home next year because I'm getting married, and you know, I would really love for the housing crisis to be solved, and you know, housing to be affordable and all those good stuff. I don't. The way we got here was, it took very many years to get here, and it's going to take very many years to get out. There's no silver bullets. There is no single thing you can do. It's going to be 1,000 small things that get us to a big result.
Thank you. You're going to email that presentation?
Yes.
Correct? I've given you my card. I look forward to that. And thank you for your time here today.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, thank you very much for your... Oh, sorry, excuse me, seat 5? Give us 1 second, Councillor Tyler Moore, and apologies. It's... Oh, we had you for a second?
My mic's on. Camera's on.
Councillor Tyler Moore, apologies. After you.
No problem. It's been one of those days. Thank you for your presentation. So, you know, this concerns me because we want to be the best at everything here in the town of Ajax. So my question to the delegate is, when I see the chart here and I see Mississauga, Markham, Barrie, Toronto, Oakville, those are big communities. They're all bigger than ours. So I know it starts to tighten up when you get into the Burlingtons and Caledon. We're 130,000 people. So I'm just trying to see, we just came out of a report, and everybody agrees there's a problem with homelessness, sort of equally-ish in all the communities in Ontario, 440 municipalities. But when I see this, you get, you know, your total score is 96%, 92%. Those are excellent scores, all the way down to our neighbors at 42 and 38. Like, so is there a correlation between the fact that those are big, rich municipal, like why is it that medium and lower aren't doing as well? Do you have an answer for that? Just leave it.
Yeah, there we go. So I think Barrie would dispute that they are a big, rich community. So I think Barrie is a great example of a small community that could and does.
Okay.
So, again, there are many things that communities of any size can do that we recommend to do, and I'll give you a practical example. So municipalities have a requirement for every development application. They'll have a laundry list of studies that they need an applicant to provide.
Individually?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
So
they will
Barrie's is different than Caledon's, is different
Everybody
than
has their
Whitby's,
own-
is different than Ajax.
Yes, sir. Everybody has their own
Really?
application requirement list, and it's based on your official plan and what's inside of that.
Okay.
And what the Planning Act requires is that you just list it. That's it in your official plan. Problem is, planning staff will come in and all they have is a checklist. What we have said is, please produce what are called terms of references. You don't need fancy technology to create a terms of reference. A terms of reference says, when is it required? What does it need to have? Who is potentially exempt? So these three things, and it is very, very painful to A, find the checklist, and B, to make sure that those checklists come with terms of references. This is something that is not just good for home builders. One thing I got feedback from municipal planning leaders time and again is that these terms of references help them with onboarding new staff. And so, a lot of municipalities have had a lot of turnover with staff, either through retirements or through people moving to other jobs in other places. And so I've heard that, you can have a planner with a senior level of experience come into a municipality and they struggle to understand what to ask for a development to provide in terms of these reports or studies or documentation. And what happens is these terms of references can really help them to make sure they don't miss something, right? Or that they know when something is complete. So they get a report and they need to know, is this report complete? And they have that documentation that tells them what should have this report had. And it can help prevent a ton of problems. And so, yes, what you do see actually is there's kind of this weird inverse correlation. The reason you see the bigger municipalities up there is because they get such a massive intake of applications that they have adopted these best practices just to keep their heads above water. But that doesn't mean that you can't adopt these best practices, and there's knock-on benefits that are beyond what we're talking about in terms of timelines, right? Now we're talking about benefits in terms of onboarding staff so that they're effective members of a staff as quickly as possible. So there's tons of benefits to this stuff, to adopting best practices. You don't need to be the biggest municipality in the world to still do a good job.
I'm just looking at the numbers.
Yeah, no, it's fair. It's a fair comment. Yeah, it is a fair comment. I will say Barrie is not a huge municipality, and they are a relatively similar size to Whitby and other municipalities on that list, and yet they play in the leagues with the big boys, right? So there's nothing that stops. I don't think there's anything that can stop Ajax from being at the top of that list. Maybe not the top, but certainly closer to the top than its size would imply.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Barrow for second. Do you want to jump in? I saw yours first, and then Councillor Henry next for the second time.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for these explanations. So I'm just trying to understand what your response to Councillor Tyler Morin was. So if there's, each municipality provides a planning checklist of what is required, and what you're saying is what you would prefer to see is terms of reference for what is required, does a municipality checklist not provide that same guidance of what is required and what is not? What is the difference?
So the checklist is the specific studies that may be required, and it's like study A, B, C, D. A terms of reference will be, for study A, you must include X, Y, Z.
Okay, so just more detail.
Yeah, it's
on the
more
checklist.
detail, and it helps both the applicant and the staff member understand the requirements, what is expected, what is complete. You don't want to be in a situation where an application is being ready to be submitted to council and then you realize some kind of study wasn't done correctly.
Right, okay.
Right? You really want to deal with these problems, again, proactive actions. And there's nothing that says Ajax can't produce that. There's not a fancy technology that is required to be transparent about what is required in a development application, both upfront on the checklist side and then on the terms of reference side. Those are things that are completely within the capability of this municipality to do.
Thank you. And would you say that your opinion or the study of the results or consultations is that you would want to see all municipalities have that same term of reference?
The study provides a ton of feedback on various matters, and that is one of the matters for which we suggest our best practices.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
And finally, we have Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Chair. So follow-up question with regards to zoning. If a municipality were to, let's say, overzone an application. When I say overzone, let's say you're looking at giving, we'll say that the zoning would allow for 25 stories. You move it to 45 due to the application. So this is something we've not done in the town. I'm not using actual numbers. It's just, you know, a point of reference. You go to 45. Let's say that 45 was a big ask. It's something that couldn't be obtainable. Or let's go crazy numbers, okay? Let's go 75 stories. Let's just shoot right out of the gate, okay? So you go for 75 stories. Now we're looking at the point of reference I went back to where I was told, you know, right now the numbers don't make sense, not going to be done, not going to see this come to fruition anytime soon. What happens with that zoning of that property in your mindset if it can't come to fruition? Is it ever come back to a council where they've looked at zoning it at a lesser number, changing that zoning?
So what you're talking about is down zoning, and I mean, I've seen instances where a developer says, I can't build a building, or like an apartment building, so I'll come back and I'll ask for townhouses instead. I think what that example exemplifies is providing zoning that is flexible, right? That can provide a range of housing options without having to come back to you. Zoning is tough and hard to get. The City of Toronto has come back on its own sites to rezone them upwards because they couldn't get them to pencil at lower densities for their affordable housing goals that they were trying to achieve. There's a number of sites that the city itself, as the developer, had to come back to council for. So zoning can be really tricky. When you have large lead times between when you put an application in and when council approves it, the economy can really change on you, and things can really move rapidly, which is why we need a planning system that is responsive and timely, right? The closer you make it between the time of when an applicant is considering the economic conditions and then putting in for an application and the time you approve it, that's what's going to improve shovels in the ground, in my opinion.
So the different mandates the province has brought forth, would you say has helped that?
The province had, what mandates do you, through the chair, ask? Can you please expand on what you mean by mandates?
Well, different, I'm going to be vague with this because I don't want to go into something specific on this, but generally speaking, what the province has allowed for, speeding up the housing pledges, would you say it's been helpful?
I will say that having a housing target is always important to understand what to aim for. There are places that don't have housing targets that through the federal government's efforts are now for the first time experiencing housing targets, or their provincial government, for example, in British Columbia, is putting out housing targets for the first time. I don't think housing targets in themselves do anything other than they give you kind of a North Star. You know, it's a communication piece, what I would say with the housing pledges, right? It's communicating to the public that a number that they can wrap their heads around, like how much housing are we talking about here, right? And that's more of a political exercise and a communication exercise, and I don't really think I'm the expert on commenting on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And Regional Councillor Crawford.
Thank you. So our regional official plan took 18 months to be approved by the province itself.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were on hold for that. Now the planning department at the region is now dissolved.
Yep.
Do you see that as being a problem?
What I will say is, with regards to this report, is within the report we emphasize that timelines are not just a municipal problem. There are provincial agencies for which we have zero insight into. There is CPCN, Hydro One, et cetera, et cetera. There are other commenting agencies. I mean, through when we were picking up application timelines, so a way we do it, because the data is very difficult to get to, is we read council meeting minutes, right? And there were cases where council was ready to approve, Staff recommended the approval, and then last minute CP or CN come in and go, oh, no, 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 we actually don't agree with this development. And it's like you had 6 months to comment and you didn't provide anything. So what I will say is everybody's got to look at their timelines. This is a municipal benchmarking report, so it looks at municipalities. But certainly within the report, we did recognize that timelines involve more than just municipalities, and everybody
Thank
has to
you.
come to the table on that.
Thank you for putting that out into the air. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for all the questions to council. Thank you very much for the delegation.
Thank you.
We are going to take a quick, what time is it now? Sorry, 2:26. We'll take a recess until 2:40. We're just going to work through any AV issues, so I appreciate your patience in the gallery and anybody watching online. So recess.
but just, so this is a bus rapid transit is what the BRT stands for. It's going to go from Simcoe to the Scarborough Town Center along Highway 2 through Oshawa and Whitby and Ajax and Pickering and out to the Scarborough Town Center, down the middle of the road, and goes out to Ellesmere. That's basically what this is, what we're talking about, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And in Ajax, when you go do the construction, we know that from Lake Ridge, pretty much all the way over to Westney, even a little bit farther over to Rotherglen, that it already is 6 lanes-ish, if you look at it that way, with the bus lanes and the 2 lanes of traffic. So all that's just really going to be putting the bus lanes in the center and having the 2 lanes of traffic going east and west on the outsides.
Correct.
Okay? And there will be a good amount of solid curb there. So if somebody needs to turn around or access something that's on, say, a westbound location on the south side, when they get to an intersection, the intersection will pause or freeze, and you'll be able to do a safe U-turn to get to those businesses, correct?
Correct. U-turns will all be done on a protected phase or an advanced phase, so you won't have a passive green to make left turns on anymore.
And the village portion right now is kind of off the radar because of the funding, but it's something that could be coming in the future. But DRT, Durham Regional Transit, and Metrolinx are not going to be funding that portion of the BRT. So it'll go there, pause, and then start again after the village. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to get some of these parameters straight. And did we get an answer on the buses? I was listening, but thinking of my question. So I don't mean to repeat a question, but maybe I am. So if there's a center medium and you're on the bus and you normally get off on the right side of the bus,
You'll still be getting off on the right side of the bus going forward.
and then just going around. Okay.
You just go back down the pathway to or down your shelter to the intersection and then continue across the crosswalk.
Okay. And will all the stations in Ajax be in the center?
Yes.
So every time you get off the bus in Ajax, you will walk off the bus, make a left, like walk in front of the bus, up the stairs onto the platform, or vice versa if you're entering the bus.
You go behind the bus, so the bus pulls in.
Behind the bus.
Yes.
Except in the village, because there is no stations there for now. Okay, I'll leave it at that, but I just wanted to simplify it as much as possible for anyone listening at home, and thank you so much for your information.
Thank you for your questions. Councillor Henry.
Thank you. I have a list of questions. The first question is with regards to the pay zoning that you mentioned here. So let's walk through this from a perspective of disability. I'm going to start with that perspective. You're on the right, you're on the east side or the north side of Kingston Road. You would normally get the bus there. You would not have to cross the light to get to a bus if you were going westbound. Now you're going to cross over across the street midway, and you're going to go to a space in the middle of the road. So when you access that space in the middle of the road, that medium, where will be the launching point where you will get on to this transit system, what happens if you have this paid zone that you're referring to? So you have this paid zone. You can only get through that access point once you've paid. Let's say you're not getting on the bus, and you made a reference to, for folks that are taking their time getting across the street, there'll be a spot to stop in the middle that you could wait for the next traffic light, then you could finish your crossover all the way through. What happens if you're standing there and there's a paid zone? Is there going to be a spot at the front where a person could stand? And if they're an accessible person and they're using, let's say, a visual cane or in a wheelchair, whatnot, is there going to be a barrier system on each side of that medium, like a gate or a fencing area that would prevent someone that had visual disabilities from not walking too far off one side or the other? What will be the safety precautions put in place there?
Okay, so through the chair. So the pedestrian refuge area in the intersection itself, in the middle of the road, that would not be a fair pay zone. And just to be clear, we're not necessarily going to be implementing a fair paid zone here. This is just one of the discussion points that we'll be looking at going forward. So we don't even know for sure if we're going to be doing that. So there is no fair paid zone at the intersection itself. Once you go up the ramp and are in the shelter itself, that would be what would be considered the fair paid zone, because that is where the Presto machines would be. So you would tap the Presto machine and be in the fair paid zone.
So at that point, at the beginning point of the medium,
Yeah.
before you would get to a fair pay zone, keeping in mind that you said that it's not in the plans now, it's a consideration, in that space that might not be fully sheltered, will there be a safety precaution on each side of the medium so that folks who might not see, have a sight disability, will not accidentally go one way or the other off the curb? Is there going to be a safety?
There is tactile plates in that area to give direction as to what the limits that you can stand in, yes.
A tactile plate is a plate that gives you bumps that tells you that you're coming off that zone, correct?
You're going into it and coming off of it, correct?
So nothing to stop you if you were to accidentally step forward, like there's no barrier system to stop you from falling.
No, it would be similar to what any intersection that you come up to. You come up to the intersection, there's a ramp going down, and there's tactile plates there. So it is the exact same situation that you would experience in the middle of the roadway that you would experience on the edge of the roadway when you come to any intersection.
And will the distance be the same for the standing area for these mediums that would be, let's say if you were on the north side of the road on Kingston Road, the same distance from the roadway to the grass area? Is it going to be that same width of distance?
It's similar to it, correct? Yes.
There'll be a big distance to stand.
Correct, yes.
Because this is something that was brought to me from a person who has limited vision, who takes transit now, and said to me, I'm very worried about this. What's this going to be like in the middle of the road? Because as it is, for me, crossing the road at large intersections is scary for me. So how will this be when I'm now standing in the middle of the road? At least when I'm on the north or south side, I know that behind me is a grassy area, and if I back up, I'm not like falling into oncoming traffic. What are the safety precautions going to be there to protect me in the middle of the road with a bus on each side? You understand where I'm going?
I do, and to give you a little comfort, when we were designing these shelters in the middle of the road, we did have a working group with our accessibility committee to go through any potential issues that could come up. So we've tried to work through a lot of those issues with them. And so we presented to the accessibility committee numerous times on this subject, and over multiple times had various subcommittees to address certain issues.
So this came, when you say accessibility committee, you mean the regional accessibility?
Yes, the
So
regional
this has not come to our local municipality accessibility committees, correct?
Correct.
And will it be?
If they would like a presentation, I would be more than happy to do a presentation.
As someone that sits on that committee, I would like to see that 100%. 100%, I would like to see that come to our committee and have that chance for comment and consultation. And so when we talk about Pickering Village, will there be a stop in Pickering Village?
So in the future, when we get to construction on Pickering Village, yes, there is a stop at Church Street.
And where will that be located?
It is in the median on far side stops. So middle of the road.
It'll still be in the middle of the road?
Correct.
Like all the other stops?
Correct.
With just a narrowed, because it's a very narrow area in there. So are we saying that it's going to be condensed lanes in that area going from 4
Councillor Henry,
lanes to
sorry,
2?
That's way in the future, so let's keep it to what we have in front of us, please.
Well, it relates to my accessible
I understand, but again,
questioning.
right now, the presentation is about what is currently going to be built, not the future. So let's keep it to the
Oh,
presentation.
because the village is not within the construction zone for now. Okay, so we don't have answers on that. Okay. Area for accessible. Okay, so the timelines, when we get to the timelines for this project, you're saying that this is coming within 2025. Is that what the presentation was saying?
Construction will start in 2025, correct?
So if we're starting construction in 2025, and I'm seeing here 2026 for Lake Ridge, but you're saying that we're not doing Pickering Village, will the system not be up and running at that time? What is that going to look like?
So there'll be a segment, by the time we get to 2027, there'll be a segment completed from Rotherglen all the way through to Wicks. So the buses will operate in the median between those segments. Outside of those segments, they will go back to the curbside and operate as they do today.
So then that will involve Pickering.
No, it won't. They'll stay where they are.
Just goes to like the same way they are now. Buses
Drive through Thornhill, you'll see it.
I have drive-through Thornhill. I actually came
Okay,
from
sorry,
Thornhill.
I don't want to back and forth between the
No,
members.
I'm just, sorry, I'm trying to clarify here. So you're saying that it'll be in the middle of the road for the areas that are completed, and the areas that are not, it'll still be in the middle of the road or
No,
not?
it goes back to whatever these bus stops are available.
On the side of the road?
Correct.
So then that goes back to Councillor Crawford's question when she just asked a minute ago about entering and exiting from different sides of the bus. Because
You don't though, it's the same side.
it's the same side regardless?
where it looks today.
That's what he said,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Lee. Thank you, Mr. Dunn, for the presentation. So I just want to confirm, and I'm sorry if I missed it, on slide 5 where it says Ajax project status, or it may have been earlier, the complete, where some portions of the route are funded and other portions there is no funding yet? So, sorry, how does that apply where in Ajax?
So through the chair, so the segments of basically between Rotherglen and Wicks, that is funded through the Invest in Canada Infrastructure Program.
Okay.
The segment right at the intersection of Lake Ridge, that is funded. The two segments, so the Pickering Village segment and the segment from Wicks to Lake Ridge, that is unfunded.
Okay, and this entire initiative is it's a Metrolinx initiative, right? They want the full route?
So Metrolinx did the transit project assessment process or the environmental assessment study for this project, but that is where their involvement ends. So they're not involved anymore in it. So it is up to the local municipalities, Toronto and the region at this point to construct
Find the
it.
funding for it, okay.
Correct.
Okay, that was my question, which I see that you anticipated that. If Metrolinx wanted it, why are they not funding the entire project? And you have answered that. Thank you. That was my question.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Seeing no other further questions, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to jump back to item 5.4, third time's the charm. We have Jordan Nanowski for the lead economist, Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation regarding Ajax housing starts updates. Are you there?
All right, let's see if this works.
It works, thank you.
Fantastic. Can you hear me clearly? Would you like my microphone input to be higher, lower?
As is great, thank you.
Fantastic, awesome. Okay, so third time's the charm. Let's get on with the show. Thank you all for having me here today. Since the Building Faster Fund started, there has been an increased interest in our housing starts data, understandably. So today I'd just like to provide a brief overview on how we collect our data and a quick update on what we are seeing in Ajax. So if we can move to the next slide, please. Awesome. So here are the 4 main steps on how we collect our data. I'll go through this quickly and you can use the slide deck after for reference. At the CMHC, we receive monthly building permits between the 1st and 10th working day of each month. Municipalities typically send us what they send Statistics Canada, or they send us something more customized and tailored to what we do. We then filter the building permits for new construction permits and conversion permits. A conversion permit would be a secondary unit added to an existing home. So for an example, a basement apartment. And for conversions, we typically treat whether or not this conversion occurred. We put all our resources towards new construction data collection, where we actually conduct site visits to see if the foundation has been completed at the property. So for new construction starts, we get the permits, we send them to our enumerators, they visit once a month. When they observe that the foundation has been poured, we count all units in the projects as housing starts. So if it's an apartment building with 500 units, that then becomes 500 apartment starts. We then release the data on the 11th working day of each month. So we actually released October data just today. However, in this presentation, I'll be showing data as of September. So if we can move forward. Awesome. So here we have a visual example of what the enumerators are looking for when I mention, when I'm talking about a foundation being complete. On the right side, you can see kind of what would be counted as complete, and on the left side, what would kind of still be in progress. So this is our definition of a housing start. It's when that foundation is completely poured in. So next slide. So we actually don't track all dwelling types, and some things that we don't collect are actually counted towards the Building Faster Fund targets. So we don't collect starts on nursing homes and student housing. We never collect data on any of this stuff. We typically collect data on self-contained units, which is kitchen, bathroom, separate entrance, etc. And I believe the Building Faster Fund has different ways of collecting this data. For example, they get long-term care bed data from the Ministry of Long-Term Care. So just again, to summarize, we don't collect starts for student housing and other dwelling types such as nursing homes. So next slide. So there are actually multiple ways to see our construction data. The most kind of intuitive is our kind of graphical interface on our housing market information portal. So on this slide deck, there is a link directly to that. So if this is shared, it's very accessible there. You can always just Google it. And here we actually have a map, and you can get the data all the way down to the granular housing, granular census tract level for a lot of these, a lot of our data. So here, this is where you'd find new construction starts. If we go to the next slide, you'll see our data tables. And here you can find, just your typical spreadsheets for new construction starts and conversion starts. So residential conversions and demolitions, they're only available in this data table, not in that previous interactive portal. So this is where you go for that. So we can move along, and I can show some actual data for what we're seeing in the GTA. So here we have new construction starts year to date up until September. So we're talking single, semi, row, and apartment units. And apartment units include both condo and rental apartments. And you can see here that in the GTA, a lot of the regions outside of the city of Toronto, aside from Peel, have actually seen increased housing starts year over year. In the city of Toronto, we're seeing that large decline largely in part to the fact that most of activity in this region is a result of condo apartment starts, which have been not particularly strong, to say the least, as developers are facing a higher interest rate environment, higher labor material costs, less investor demand, etc. And if we go forward to the next slide, we can kind of see year to date on what's been happening in Ajax. So here we have since 2015, and it's broken down by unit type. And we can see that the row units in gray, so townhomes, and apartment starts in red have been particularly dominant. The apartment starts have been, I believe, almost entirely in the rental space. And you can see they made a very large part of the housing starts in the last 2 years. One thing to note, when we're looking at the apartment starts in the last 2 years is, I believe this is, two of these buildings were part of the Vision at Pat Bailey Square project, and they were tracked as separate housing starts in our data. So one building was tracked in 2023 as a housing start and the other in 2024. I believe the data team stated that the shared foundation was not included in the permit data. However, I may be wrong. These nuances are kind of outside of the scope of my role, so any questions pertaining to this particular nuance would be better addressed by our data collection and processing team. In any case, if we treat these 324 housing starts that we observed in 2024, if we treat them as 2023 starts, then there would be kind of a sharp decline, and we'd have less than 100 housing starts in Ajax year to date. But that's kind of expected. When you're dealing with relatively smaller municipalities and you have these large apartment construction projects, it adds a lot of volatility into year-to-year housing start levels. And I understand that there are other ways to kind of meet the Building Faster Fund's goals. As I mentioned, the unit types that we don't track, but there's also conversions. So if we go to the next slide, we can see our conversions data since 2021 for Ajax. And our conversions data has been getting a lot of attention because we know that a lot of municipalities, including your own, have now increased their density up to 4 units in single-family neighborhoods. A lot of that had to do with the Housing Accelerator Fund agreements that were reached with the federal government. And there's a lot of potential growth for this. And on this slide, we're seeing that there is quite a substantial amount of conversions activity occurring in Ajax. In fact, in the previous 3 years, they've accounted for almost a third of overall housing starts, and there's about 67 of them year to date, ending in September. So if we go on to the next slide, that kind of concludes my presentation. I see that I've done it in 3 minutes instead of 5, so I believe that leaves us a little bit more room for questions. And if I'm not able to address all questions in this meeting today, feel free to reach out via the contact information provided.
Great. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Questions?
We have Regional Councillor Crawford with the first question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank you for going back and counting our numbers again, and I understand the check is in the mail, so it's not a question, just thank you.
Yeah, that's definitely above my pay grade, but glad to hear.
Any other members of council wish to ask any questions to the presenter? Seeing none, thank you very much for the presentation.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Next presentation is one of council's favorites, the 2025 Library Book Contest winners. We have Sarah Dodge, Coordinator of Community Engagement for Ajax Public Libraries.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just before we get started, I want to let you know some of the audio is quite low on these next 2 videos, so we will be distributing them to council via email following today's meeting, and they will be shared on social media as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Hello. Thank you, Mayor Collier and members of council for hosting the library for this presentation today. Again, my name is Sarah Dodge, and I'm the Coordinator of Community Engagement at the Ajax Public Library. In recognition of Ontario Public Library Week this October, the library invited Ajax children from junior kindergarten to grade 8 to showcase their love for the library by designing an original bookmark. This was the 14th year the library has run this competition, and we are again delighted by the result. 12 winning bookmarks, one for each month of 2025, were selected by a library staff vote for distribution at all Ajax Public Library branches starting in January. Each artist will receive 25 copies of their bookmark as well as a certificate to celebrate their artistic achievement. All designs were fantastic and the competition was very close. Congratulations to all 204 young Ajax artists who submitted their artwork this year. And that's up for 178 that we had last year, so that was fun. Congratulations to these 12 young artists who will meet in just a moment. January, we have Ashwani V from grade 8. For February, Dylan K from grade 1. In March, Tavani D, grade 4. April, Elena R, grade 8. In May, Anuva S., grade 8. June was Alana A., grade 2. July is Noor P., grade 8. August is Ahmed A., grade 3. September is Iman A., grade 8. October is Zoe, grade 8. November is Raya R., grade 5. And December is Ashkura G., grade 3. And now we are pleased to present a video of our young artists.
Hi, my name is Elena Rodriguez and my bookmark is in April.
Hello, my name is Anifa. I am in grade 8 and I won the bookmark contest for the month of May. My bookmark represents the season of spring with the bees, flowers, and the colors. Additionally, my bookmark has a short phrase, "to be continued," written on it. Thank you. Bye.
My name is Aliana Sloan. I am in grade 2. My school name is Ontario Street. PS, I am 7 years old. My bookmark says "reach to reach the sky." I draw myself looking to a telescope up in the sky.
My name is Afina Was. I'm in grade 3. I wanted a bookmark for August. Thank you for choosing me.
My name is Imana West. I'm in grade 8, and my bookmark is the winner for September. Thank you for selecting me.
Hi, my name is Zoe. I'm in grade 8 and I won the 2025 October bookmark competition. What inspired me was the holiday of Halloween. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Riri John. I was the winner of the bookmark contest for November 2025. This is my design. It's supposed to be a dragonite, and at the bottom it says "always speaking for good books." This represents how much I love books and how much I'm always looking forward to reading. Thanks for listening.
So thank you, everyone. Drop by the Ajax Public Library starting in January to pick up your 2025 bookmarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Next, we have Library Services 2024 Fall Update. We have Piali Correa, Library Board Chair, Ajax Public Library Board, and Sarah Vaisler, Chief Librarian and Executive Officer.
Good afternoon. Piali Correa, and I'm the Library Board Chair, here to present on both new and ongoing library initiatives and activities. Our library supports education and literacy, foundational pieces of an informed and engaged society. This is done by loaning books, offering informative programs, access to technology, and initiatives like the Baby Book Club. The Baby Book Club was launched in July 2024, and since then, Ajax has provided over 130 Baby Book Club kits to promote early literacy, specifically targeting Lake Ridge Health patients who visit the infant hearing clinics at the library's main branch. Our library encourages creativity and entrepreneurship, best demonstrated in our makerspace. Throughout the summer, participants visiting the makerspace were able to upcycle clothing. T-shirts became pillows, tote bags, and even shoes. The Makerspace continues to be a hub for small businesses and entrepreneurs for everything from creating merchandise to recording content. Our library shares and promotes Ajax's history. We've recently acquired equipment that allows us to digitize and share fragile materials like the scrapbook of James Henry Clement, seen here. The Town Hall display case outside council chambers has been updated to meet accessibility standards and currently features HMS Ajax, Defense Industries Limited, and the beginnings of our town. One of the most impactful performance measures that the library tracks is in-person visits to our branches. People are visiting our branches more than ever, clearly seeking a third space. Over 2,000 people per day visit our libraries, whether to get a book or quickly print a resume, or to study, work, or socialize. The library provides a community space that is difficult to find anywhere else, and sometimes the library is a sanctuary from the outside world. At the library, vulnerable populations shelter from hot, cold, rain, and snow. They connect with support services, use facilities, and simply coexist. And we do want everyone to be welcome in our spaces. But the reality is that sometimes we also see unwelcome behaviors in our shared space. Although the number of incidents have increased, library staff de-escalation techniques and other mitigation strategies have resulted in fewer traumatic and serious reports. Supporting early literacy, providing creative outlets, preserving our town's history, and acting as a social connection point have previously been difficult to assign a dollar value to. A new toolkit, VOLT, has been established to quantify the social value that libraries provide. In Ajax, our social return on investment is $9.72. We would be remiss in speaking about our success without mentioning our employees. We have compiled some customer testimonial videos that share our sentiments.
I love coming to the library. We come here once a week. The staff here are great. Currently, I have 5 books out, and I'm reading all 5 books at once.
I've relied solely on the staff of the library here in Ajax. They have been absolutely marvelous to me.
Well, the library, it sort of just became this safe refuge for him where he always knew he could always be himself and be welcomed and be appreciated for who he is.
All the things that they offer here is really is a boon for the community to expand into business and then grow the community together.
The staff on site is really nice and friendly and just helpful. I'm very happy with the service, and I thank you very much for everything.
I really appreciate all the help of the staff at Ajax Public Library, their professionalism, their knowledge.
For a library, then McLean is your branch. We are just so grateful for everything that Audley Library has done for us.
Makerspace gave a visual perspective of what I can achieve.
And this library in particular is my favorite. I just love the people who work here. So thank you all very, very much.
Bye, thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thanks again.
Thank you for your time this afternoon, and our Chief Librarian and Executive Officer, Sarah Weisler, is here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. We have Regional Councillor Crawford.
Thank you. Thank you very much for everything you do in our community. My granddaughter frequents the Audley Recreation Library, or the Audley Library, sorry, quite often. I'm asked to take her there, and she loves just being in the library. But I will say that I think every single community group that I've come in contact with has nothing but good to say about the library, their interaction with the library, the availability of space, and so I thank you for being the hub of our community. And I don't hear bad experiences for people that go to the library. So thank you. There's no question. I just want to thank you for being good community members, as you always were.
Thank you, Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Chair. Great presentation, both presentations, quite lovely. Good people work in libraries, we know this, lovely people. We spend a lot of time there. My daughter loves it there, and both libraries, ARC and Maclean's. I'm wondering what, if any, plans in the future, of course we haven't seen the budget yet, or not just this term, but in any future term, with regards to the makerspace and duplicating that at one of the other facilities. Is there plans for that? What does that look like?
Through the chair to Councillor Henry, the Makerspace certainly has been one of our most popular services that we've opened. And in fact, in the last year, we've had almost 20,000 visitors to that small space. The Makerspace was designed to be a destination within Ajax, knowing that we are at capacity when it comes to our space resources. So at this present time, we don't have the ability to reallocate space, but we know that that's important, and we are just delighted to have people flock to that makerspace from all areas of Ajax.
100%. I've met a lot of lovely people in there, as my daughter has made me spend an entire Sunday afternoon in there making buttons and other things that your space has to offer. Great learning opportunity for young people, and I've seen a lot of young new business owners in there utilizing the space. So congratulations to your board, to everything you're doing, and look forward to more presentations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Lee. Thank you for the presentation. It's always such a nice positive thing for council to hear, so thank you for all that hard work. 2 questions, one about the bookmark presentation. So do the artists, when they submit their drawings, do they choose the month they want to draw for, or is it random? Okay.
So I'll repeat the question. So through the chair to Councillor Bauer, it is random. We have, as you heard, over 200 submissions come in, and then they are voted on by staff and our library board, who contributes to selecting the bookmark contest winners.
That's great. And it's great to see so many of the older elementary students still finding the passion to do that, the grade 8 students. That's great. My other question is about the My First Library Card program. So currently it's for Lakeridge Health patients who visit the hearing clinic, I think it's at. What's the plan for expansion, if any?
The Baby Book Club is designed for us to reach out specifically to those Lakeridge Health patients. However, it is in no way limited to those people. So we actually don't have a big promotional blitz from this program, but any parent or guardian who comes in with a young child, our staff at the desk will promote the book club. And really the whole club is designed to connect young families to early literacy and the programs that we're already offering in Branch. And one of the nice things about this program is sometimes those patients visiting from Lakeridge Health, they might not be familiar with library services, so it's a way to connect with new users.
Okay, great. Thank you. Those were my questions.
Thank you. Regional Councillor Dyes.
Well, thank you. Just wanted to comment on how impressed I am with what you do, as always, at the library and how you've become that real community hub. And my question was about the digitized scrapbook you did for James Henry. I thought that was a fabulous idea. So are you going to, if you can, as you move forward, incorporate more of that kind of thing?
Through the chair to Regional Councillor Dyes, yes, that is absolutely the plan. It is with the support of United Way and receiving a grant that we were able to purchase a specialized piece of technology to help us digitize fragile artifacts like that scrapbook. This process is incredibly time consuming because they are fragile. So as time permits, we will continue to work our way through the collection and get those things digitized. We also prioritize materials, things that are deteriorating the most rapidly. That would be something that we would prioritize to digitize first.
Well, that's great because, like I say again, there are many people who, once they start to learn about the history of Ajax, want to go somewhere and learn more about it. So this is perfect for that, and that gives it a little personal touch as well with this one. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, I'll just add my one. We recently, or the library recently added a security coordinator. I think it was this year, correct?
To the chair, yes, we have hired a coordinator of safety and operations.
Do you have any year-over-year statistics over, are we seeing an increase, decrease in security incidents?
Thank you. This provides me a great opportunity to introduce our coordinator of safety and operations, who's here with us, Glenn Gifford, and I would be happy to allow him to answer this question and talk more a little bit.
Please, thank you.
Good afternoon. You were asking about the number or the
number, if you have them, incident types, whether we're seeing an increase or it's flat or.
I'd say that the number, it's pretty comparable to last year at this point, but I think what's important is the intensity or the seriousness of the incidents themselves have actually decreased, which is usually great to see. And I think that really speaks to the de-escalation skills of the staff, the training they've received, the ability to debrief and have a check-in with supervisors around what's been going on, and just being able to work through things and even be referred to the family EAP program.
And do you work closely with the town's security coordinator?
Yes.
Robin Williams, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for sharing that. Very nice to meet you, and welcome to the team.
Great to meet you. Thank you.
Any other further questions for the library team? Seeing none, then, I'm going to move up departmental reports 7.4.1 APL-2024-03, the Library Services 2024 Fall Update. I'll need a mover and a seconder. I see Councillor Bauer, Regional Councillor Crawford as seconder. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, then, I'll call the vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much to all the library staff for popping in. The library board members, wonderful to have you. You're free to stay. We're not holding you to it though. Moving on within the agenda, so we are finished presentations. Thank you for that. We now have correspondence. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? You see Councillor Tyler Moran, followed by Councillor Henry to second. Any polls?
I have, that's why my mic's
Okay,
on.
first we will go with Councillor Crawford had emailed me. You want us to pull items 2, 3, 4, 5, 6?
Yes.
Okay. Any other polls? I see Councillor Tyler Moran, item 10. Councillor Henry? 2, 5, and 8. So 8. Do we get all those? Thank you. So we have, for the balance then, we had Councillor Tyler Moran and Councillor Henry as the mover and seconder for the balance, and we'll start the vote. Thank you. So I think I kept track of them. Councillor Crawford, did you want to do them individually, or do you want to kind of?
No, I just want to move to endorse them.
Move to endorse 2 through 6? Yeah. Perfect.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, we're just waiting for one vote on the previous vote.
Oh. All right. So that passes. We have a motion to endorse items 2 through 6 on your agenda package. Councillor Henry, would you like to second? I think you had 5 on yours list as well. Perfect. Seeing no questions, comments, we will call the vote to endorse 2 through 6. Thank you. If I've kept track of this properly, we had Councillor Henry with item number 8. Did you want to speak on this or just?
Correct. Just a few seconds, if you will.
Please.
With regards to 8, and this came from the city of Pickering. So we know that currently, right now, when we went to AMO, we had a councillor from Pickering speak on the floor with regards to some situations that were happening, and asking the province for some changes with regards to what could be done with the municipal codes of conduct. And I'd like to say that this is a wide spectrum that we're looking at here, and it's very important to make sure, and Minister Calandra answered the delegation presented to him on the floor with some feedback, and I think it was really important to know We want to make sure that codes of conducts are not weaponized. That's really important. But at the other end of the spectrum, we are also seeing some behavior that when these rules, policies were put in place, were never seen this type of behavior before. So therefore, there has to be some changes moving forward. And I just wanted to pull that and speak to it really quickly. Something that I'm hoping we're going to see some changes with the province coming forward in the near future. So thank you for your time for that.
Did you wish to endorse this, Councillor Henry? Can I get a seconder, please? If anyone, we see Regional Councillor Dyes. So seeing no further comment, I'll call the vote. Just waiting for one more vote. No, Regional Councillor Dyes, you're fine. And that passes. Thank you very much. Next, we have item number 10. Did you want to speak on this or just in? Please, there you go.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that, asking colleagues for move to endorse, but if you read this through, it really encompasses, it's not a competition which one encompasses most, but this comes from the Ontario's big city mayors. It really speaks, even the title, which is called Solve the Crisis Campaign. I mean, it just hits it. It's a bullseye. So it really calls on the region and more importantly the provinces and the federal governments to help our municipalities get through this monetarily, and it also speaks to the human element. So yeah, very happy to pull this and to ask for the endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. As the mayor, would you like to second this? You may not be able to get me right there. So very good. Could I get a seconder? Anybody in council? We have Regional Councillor Dyes, and we will start the vote. Thank you very much. Councillor Bauer? Councillor Bauer, if you could vote. Thank you. Perfect, that passes unanimously. We are on to number 7, reports. I'm gonna batch all the reports together. So we have 7.1, Community Affairs and Planning, 7.2, GGC, 7.3, Summary of Advisory Committee Activities, and we dealt with 7.4. Can I get a mover or seconder, please? I see Councillor Henry and Councillor Bauer. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. I'm trying, sorry, it's not. Oh, it's probably because I batched them all together. Thank you. And that passes. Thank you so much. Are there any regional council reports? Seeing none, we'll move on. There are no business arising from notice of motion. We're on to item 10, which is bylaws. So we have 78-2024, Fire Route application, 537 Kingston Road East. Could I get a mover and a seconder, please? We see Councillor Tyler Morin and Councillor Bauer. That bylaw number 78-2024 be read a first, second, and third time passed. Again, that's Councillor Tyler Morin, Councillor Bauer seconding. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. Any notices of motion from council? Oh, sorry, let me finish this. That vote passes. Thank you. Item number 11, any notice motion for next council meeting? The December meeting will be the hybrid GDC meeting, so seeing none. Item number 12, new businesses and announcements. We have Councillor Tyler Morin.
Thank you. Been waiting for this whole meeting. So regional and local councillor, us, Marilyn and Rob, are going to be on Monday, November 25th, 2024 at the McLean Community Center, having another one of our ward meetings. If you've never been out, if you hear our voice today, come on out. It's always a good discussion. Sometimes it's serious, sometimes it's fun. It's always fun. But hope to see everybody once again. The Ward 1 community meeting at McLean Community Center on Monday, November 25th, 2024 at 7 p.m.
Thank you very much. Would any of the councilmen, any announcements? Just hit your request to speak. We have Councillor Henry.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring up that we have our annual Santa Claus Parade coming up on November 23rd. And of course, there will be a lovely council float where we will be on it and waving and some candy giving out, and we're going to have some good times. Staff will be joining us, I believe. It's going to be a fabulous evening. Hope to see everyone there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Lee. I just wanted to congratulate Ashley McWhorter from the Recreation Department, who organized, along with staff and many volunteers, a fantastic showcase on Saturday night at St. Francis, the Ajax Superstar. There were, I believe she said, 75 applications. She had to choose down to 17 performances. There were singers, dancers, musicians. It was just absolutely fantastic. We have a lot of very talented youth in our town. So congratulations and thanks to all who came out.
Thank you. Councillor Tyler Moran wants to come back in. We'll let him in. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And I was remiss because I thought there was another meeting, but of course there's not. This is an important one, as they all are, but we're celebrating Christmas in the Village, that's Pickering Village, Old Kingston Road, Saturday, November 30th from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. And the lighting of the Christmas tree is 5 p.m. So I think a lot of us will be there. Marilyn and I will be there. Looking forward to seeing everyone. Once again, Christmas in the Village, tree lighting at 5 p.m. on Saturday, November 30th, but it starts at 3, goes to 7. Hope to see everybody there.
Thank you. Any other members of council wish to make an announcement? Seeing none, I'm going to make two. Tomorrow, from 6 p.m. till 7:30, the Ajax Anti-Racism Task Force is having its community consultation here at Council Chambers. Please come on by and give your feedback to the amazing hard work that the task force is doing. And then right after that, there's an intimate partner violence awareness event happening at Ajax Public Library from 6 p.m. to 8:30 with presentations starting at 6:30. So if you are in the area, you can definitely come to both. Perfect. Thank you, Council. Oh, yes. And we have the Mayor and Council toy drive happening. Please drop any of your donations to any of our community centers, town hall, I'm sure the library, anywhere that are taking donations. I have tons of craft dinner and peanut butter to give. I have an army's worth. So yes, we are on item number 13, confirming bylaw. Can I get a mover or seconder, please? Seeing Councillor Bauer, Regional Councillor Crawford. Any questions, comments, concerns? We'll call the vote then. Perfect. And we just tore through this. We were at adjournment. Gonna get a mover second for adjournment. We see Councillor Tyler Moran and Councillor Henry, and we'll start the vote.
Good job.
Oh, myself. Thank you, Council. Thank you, staff, and thank you to all constituents watching. Everyone have a fantastic day.